people alive today who fought during World War II. And there were people alive during World War II who fought during the Civil War. And there were people alive during the Civil War who fought during the American Revolution. Isn't that an insane thought? The United States is only 3 lifetimes old. But here's an even crazier thought. Some scientists believe that the first person to live 1,000 years has already been born. Thanks for joining. It's time for another round of questions from Answer Files on Patreon. If you'd like to get some questions answered yourself, join in some live video chats, join a private Facebook group, or just get some exclusive emails from me, you can join at patreon.com/answerswithjoe and give till it hurts, people. Now what can I do to get you in this here new car? I'm the worst salesperson. First question comes from Matt Herring, who asks, can you do a video about the ideological Turing test and how it can be applied for more logical and constructive conversations? Holy crap, this could not be more relevant right now. The Turing test was conceived by Alan Turing in 1950. He was an early computer pioneer who famously cracked the Nazis' Enigma code in World War II, which was depicted in the movie The Imitation Game. The Turing test was first proposed by Turing in his paper Computing Machinery and Intelligence, which began by asking, I propose to consider the question, can machines think? He went on to wonder if someday a machine could be intelligent enough that the average person could have a conversation with it and have no idea that they're talking to a machine. It's a theoretical test that's never been quite passed, although some of our speech AI is getting pretty close. And the fact that Turing was even thinking about this at a time when computers were made up of thousands of vacuum tubes is actually just totally amazing and deserves a video all its own, but we're not talking about that right now. No, we're talking about the ideological Turing test. This is a way to determine if somebody can understand the political views of their opponents. The test asks a person to write an essay and do it in favor of a position that they don't personally believe in, and see if they can write it in such a way that an average reader would think that they actually do believe that. In other words, if you were pro-gun, you would be asked to write an essay in favor of gun control and see if somebody reading it would think that you were sincere in your beliefs. The idea was put forth by Bryan Caplan, who's an anarcho-capitalist, which is like libertarianism on steroids and Red Bull, in response to left-leaning economist Paul Krugman when he said in an article that he thought liberals understood conservative positions better than conservatives understood liberal positions. There are 3 ways to do it. 1, the reader knows the identity and politics of the author and know that they're participating in a test. In other words, you know that the author is Bill O'Reilly and that he's normally conservative, but he's trying to pass himself off as liberal. 2, the identity and political stance of the author are known, but it's not known to the reader that it's a test. So in this case, if you're the reader, you know that Bill O'Reilly wrote it and you know that he's conservative, but for some reason he wrote a paper about how awesome abortion is. And 3, the identity of the author is secret and the reader doesn't know it's a test. They think they're just reading genuine beliefs. So in this case, you're just reading an article and you have no idea who wrote it and you have no idea that this is a test. Now, I'll be honest, I looked around for some results of these tests and I had trouble finding any, so if you guys know of some, please share them down in the comments. I did find a forum on the Conservative Econologue website where Bryan Caplan first posted this ideological Turing test, and it was kind of interesting because most of the people on there were conservative and they got a 0 out of 5, like almost all of them. In other words, they weren't able to correctly identify any of the articles that were written by actual liberals or which ones were conservatives posing as liberals. And my favorite part was that many of them were convinced that the liberals who wrote the articles for this thing had spiked them just to mess with their results. And then there were others that were convinced that they were just way too generous and that apparently liberals are just way dumber than they thought. So, lesson learned. Ultimately, who performs better is not the point at all. The ultimate point is just getting people to see things from the other person's perspective, or at least try to. And the sad thing is, a lot of people these days aren't even willing to attempt it. Just the idea of performing a thought experiment, of trying to think like their opposition, is just anathema to them. And that's a shame. We are at one of the most polarized moments in American history. But deep down inside, we all have the same wants and the same fears and the same needs, and if we can come to an understanding on those things, then maybe we've got a little bit of hope. We have to be brave enough to try, at the very least. Gavin Petraccio said, I'd like to see a video on the Immortals, the Silicon Valley billionaires who are working on living forever. Billionaires are, by definition, very ambitious people. When you have more money than you could possibly spend in 1,000 lifetimes, the idea of just living 1,000 lifetimes doesn't seem so improbable. And there are a handful of billionaires working on this issue, and some of their plans are kind of insane. You can't talk about this without mentioning Dmitry Isakov, a 32-year-old Russian billionaire who created the 2045 initiative. It's a multidisciplinary effort to make immortality feasible by 2045. To do it, they propose a series of avatars starting in the year 2020. Avatar A is a robotic copy of a human body controlled remotely, much like the movie Avatar. They claim that 85% of the technology required for this is already available and would have applications including next-level teletravel and cyber tourism, rehabilitation of paraplegics and disabled persons, and increased increased safety for first responders. They believe this is capable by the year 2020. Avatar B takes it a step further. It's a full-body prosthesis onto which your head would be transplanted at the end of your health span. So it's a lot like Avatar A, except instead of controlling it remotely, you're transplanted right into it. They plan for this to be possible by 2030. By 2040, they plan to launch Avatar C, a completely non-biological brain and body that your consciousness can be transported into. This would be a non-aging, mechanical, custom-made body with greater than human capabilities. And the last one is Avatar D, which is a hologram-like avatar that I don't honestly fully understand. It's the ultimate goal of the project, but it's optional since Avatar C would give you full immortality. According to their estimates, this would be possible by 2045. Of course, whenever you talk about the transfer of consciousness from one thing to another, you have the whole teleportation problem, which is how do you know that the original stream of consciousness continues from one place to the other? How do you know that you're not just making a copy of that consciousness and letting the original one end? Because to the person or machine where the consciousness wakes up in, it would feel like a continuation of consciousness, just like going to sleep and waking up again. But there's no way of knowing if the experience of the original consciousness is just like going to sleep and then this is why I can't sleep at night. Other people involved in immortality and longevity research include Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle. His biographer once said that he sees death as just another corporate competitor that he can outfox. And his foundation gives out $40 million a year to life extension research. Venture capitalist Paul F. Glenn heavily supports longevity research at MIT, Stanford, Princeton, and Harvard, and has supported the Methuselah Foundation, which is run by Rasputin lookalike Aubrey de Grey. PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel has put millions of dollars towards the SENS Foundation, which is researching a cure for mortality, and Google co-founder Sergey Brin is heavily involved in Singularity University, which is Ray Kurzweil's stomping grounds. Links for all these places in the downstairs. As long as humans have been able to contemplate our mortality, we've been trying to find ways to cheat death, both spiritually and physically. The Epic of Gilgamesh, considered the very first work of recorded literature, was about a man seeking the secret for eternal life. Many of our early explorers were seeking the mythical fountain of youth. I'm looking at you, Ponce de Leon. And Emperor Qin, the man that China was named after, famously died from mercury poisoning, which he was ingesting, trying to live forever. But with the exponential growth of technology over the last 100 years and this amount of money being thrown at the problem, are we on the cusp of beating death? I, for one, am hopeful, but skeptical. Immortality to me feels a lot like end times people. You know, for thousands of years, people have known that it was just right around the corner, and they've always been wrong. Having said that, average life expectancy has gone up 3 months for every single year that's passed since 1840. That's a trend that doesn't seem like it's going to stop in lieu of a giant plague of some kind. Of course, there are some people that are predicting a post-antibiotic age where superbugs are prevalent and just a tiny scratch could kill you, so, yay. By the way, if you're interested in the 2045 initiative and want to be a part of it, you can go to 2045.com and actually order your own avatar. They start at the low, low price of $3 million. The good news is you can pay for it by selling body parts, because, you know, you won't need them. Thanks to Matt and Gavin for the questions and for being awesome members of our Patreon community. If you are interested in it, I'll spare you the sales pitch, but just go over to patreon.com/answerswithjoe. Like and share to help this video reach more people, and if it's your first time here, please hit subscribe, because it'll just make all your dreams come true. Thanks as always for watching, have an eye-opening week, and I'll see you next time. Love you guys. Take care.